You know, guys, there's a time for everything under the sun. And nothing lasts forever. And it's the same way with this. Basically, it's a long-term credit cycle. And we've been in this expansion of credit that's lasted an awful long time. And we've been in a period now between recessions. It's been a long, extendedly long period. Nothing lasts forever, but right now we're in this little lull kind of a period, kind of like when you're out on the sea and a sailor, you know, and you got no wind behind your sails. I think they call that the doldrums. Anyway, we're in this little area right now that's kind of neither here nor there. And the stock markets, you know, the investors right now, they just don't know which way to turn. They're like, will the stock market go down? Will it go up? They just don't know. Nobody knows what's actually going to happen next in this situation. But the thing is the globe has built up this tremendous debt pile. I'm going to start the charts right here, and we're going to take a look at this. One of the things about this is the phenomenon of digital currencies. Bitcoin being the blockchain. What would you call it? The best of all these digital currencies, you know, is Bitcoin. And Bitcoin wouldn't be alive right now if they hadn't have mismanaged the world's financial system. Basically, we've got criminals and criminal organizations that are running everything. And Bitcoin wouldn't be alive right now, except for them and what they've done with their mismanagement. Bitcoin fever driven by stocks pessimism. So they don't really know which way the stock market's going to go. Some of them think it's going to go up. Some of them think it's going to go down. My opinion is that we're in for a correction very soon. I think this little bull run that we've had is just about extended itself as far as it's going to go at this point. It says global debt has reached the astronomical amount of $243 trillion. Well, you know, that $243 trillion of global debt is actually credit. Debt becomes credit. And so if you see the debt disappear, you see the credit disappear at the same time. This is the way banks work. Their balance sheet is all actually debts that people have borrowed from the bank. And the thing is they count that as credit to the bank. I know it doesn't seem to make any sense, because if the people don't pay them back the money with interest, then the bank has to count that as a non-performing loan. And what happens is then the bank has to make up for that. See, the strange way about how all this works is the bank's money creation tool only works in one direction. It's kind of like a water valve, you know, how the water will flow through a water, and you have a valve in there. It's a one-way valve. It won't let the water go backwards. It always makes the water just go in one direction only. And that's the money creation tool of all the banks, but specifically the banks that are not the central bank, the banks that do what's called fractional reserve lending. They're supposed to have a fraction of that money on hand in case there's a bank run or something. Well, they're supposed to keep 10% on hand. Well, it turns out they've made laws for themselves and stuff, because you know how powerful they are. They've made laws and stuff for themselves, so a lot of the banks don't even have to keep 10%. So, if you've got 1,000 people going to a particular bank that you're used to going to, you know, and they all think they got their money in there, actually, there's less than 10% of the actual money in the bank. Actually, of that 10% too, they've probably lent a lot out on different things that they're doing, like maybe invested in the stock market. They invest your money. Anyway, suffice to say that if you went to the bank and everybody went to the bank at once, how much percentage of the money would they be able to take out of the money that's on account? In other words, your money is on account at the bank. How much would you get? I think it's something like 0.6% of 1 penny for every dollar that they'd actually be able to give you. I think it's less than 1 penny. It's just over half a penny. So for every dollar you got in the bank, if you got $100 in the bank, you're going to get, let's see, less than a penny on each dollar. It's like 0.6, I think, of a penny on each dollar is what they actually have to give you. Not even a penny on every dollar. So $100, if they gave you a dollar back, that would be a penny on every dollar. There's what it is, 60 cents. If you got $100 in the bank, what the bank actually has to give you is 60 cents. That's all they keep. So they would be cleaned out if everybody came in and said, hey, we want our money. If everybody in America come to every bank and said, hey, we want our money, the banks would only be able to give less than 1 penny on every dollar. And if you think the Federal Deposit Insurance Commission is going to help you out because your money's insured, they haven't got enough to cover these big banks. And, of course, you have to understand that they've written into law, they got it written into law, written into stone, that the big boys get first crack at the money from the FDIC. And also, if you have to claim from the FDIC, believe me, it's going to be a long, lengthy process, and you're probably not going to ever see your money again if you ever have to claim. So for these people out there who think, hey, you know what, my money's FDIC insured, it's not worth the paper it's written on, the FDIC insurance, as far as the banking system's concerned, because they don't have near enough money to go around, and the big boys will get all that money first. So anyway, back to what we were talking about here. People just don't know where to turn. They know that the inflation is eating their money away. They get their money invested in the bank. Inflation's eating it away. They know this, but they know that they can't really take their money out of the bank, so their wealth that they think they have, they don't really have it, if you understand what I'm saying. But at this point in time, they still could go in if they really wanted to, and they could probably pull out 1,000 here, 1,000 there out of the bank, and go and invest that in something real, like silver or gold, you know, which are probably the safest of the alternatives to the dollar. Or they could even buy Bitcoin, which I don't consider to be a safe alternative to the dollar, but is something that is very hot right now. It's a hot commodity, and it could go up a heck of a lot. So you could be looking at big returns with Bitcoin. But I don't think it's as safe. I don't think it's safe. I don't think it's safe at all. And because one of the things that's driving Bitcoin is this particular period that we're in right now, where people just don't know where to turn. They're turning to things like Bitcoin. The market's becoming gloomier here, and they're turning their focus on Bitcoin and speculating about the causes of renewed interest in the cryptocurrency. Mounting debt is causing pessimism about stock and spiking Bitcoin fever. Well, that's what we can call it, Bitcoin fever. But just because it's a fever, just because it's a mania, doesn't mean that it couldn't spread worldwide, go really crazy, and take Bitcoin up to prices that we've never seen before. I mean, if 20,000 is possible, then even higher prices are possible. But one of the things you have to take into consideration is spillover. At a certain point, there's going to be spillover into the precious metals. All this money is on the move. Precious metals have been held down by the world's central banks that are working in cooperation with the regular banks. And I just know, I can tell you right now, that this is big. In other words, if it was just one little bank or one little guy trying to do this, manipulate the precious metals and stuff, they'd have him in jail. There's got to be permission behind this from on high in order to allow them to actually continue with this price manipulation, and nobody says boo. Nobody says a word. Nobody says, hey, this isn't right, what you're doing. Nobody says anything. And this leads me to conclude that anyway. So we got Bitcoins exploding in price here. At the same time, in this little funny period we have right here in world history, just before the big collapse. And why I say big collapse is they've expanded the credit out. Credit can't expand continuously. it has to contract at a certain point, and we're getting ready for the contraction, and this next contraction is going to be huge. Let's take a look at Chinese economy. China's economy here stabilizes after Beijing opens up the bank vaults. So what this is basically saying is China's economy was not stable. They were going through a downturn. Beijing just opened up the bank vaults. It says Beijing, China's economy stabilized in the first 3 months of the year, according to official figures released on Wednesday, after Beijing flooded the financial system with money in a whatever-it-takes approach to arrest a slowdown. So what you're basically telling me here is that the only way the Chinese economy is really running now is by flooding the system with money. As soon as they stop flooding the system with money, then the Chinese economy starts to fall again. What sort of an economy is that? It says that they flooded the financial system with money in a whatever-it-takes approach to arrest the slowdown. Officials said that the Chinese economy, the world's second largest, grew 6.4% in the year's first quarter compared with the same period in 2018. The pace matched that of the fourth quarter. Now, I'm going to tell you something about these GDP figures from China. They're just as screwy as when you go in and you buy yourself a hammer from China and you go to use it and the first nail you hit, the head flies off. Or you go, you know what I mean? These Chinese GDP figures are not solid at all. I mean, I think they're about 3% off at least. It says, while economists in general regard China's economic figures with skepticism, yeah, I guess they should regard China's economic figures with skepticism, a lot of skepticism. It says they point to signs that the country's current slowdown may have reached bottom. Yeah, it's only reached bottom because they've dumped money on it. Tremendous money. They can't continue to do this. Now the Chinese Central Bank, the PBOC, is talking about, hey, you know what, we've done an awful lot of this stimulus lately, and our debt pile is built up bigger and bigger and bigger. Maybe we should cut a little bit of this debt back. Maybe we shouldn't do quite as much stimulus. Let's hope when we withdraw the stimulus away, let's hope the economy will stay stable now. Not a snowball's chance in hell. As soon as they withdraw this stimulus away, the Chinese economy will start to falter again. Even if they do a trade deal with Trump, it ain't going to matter because the United States' economy is slowing down. That means they're not going to buy as much goods from China. It means that people are gonna wait. They're not going to buy the Chinese hammer. They're gonna use whatever they got at home. They're going to search through their drawers of their house and try to find some old hammer someplace rather than go out and spend new money. It's just a general slowdown. It means that they're not going to buy those Chinese shoes anymore. It means that they're going to wear their old shoes out until there's holes in them. This is what it means. These guys that are making these policies and stuff, they got their head in the clouds, honestly. They don't know the real world situation that's going on. They look at the stock market and they use that as a total gauge of the economy. Well, the stock market is completely unplugged from the real world economy. The stock market can do whatever in the hell it wants. It's no sign of what's going on in the general real economy. And everybody looks at the stock market and says, hey, you know, the stock market's good. Look, the stock market's up. Oh, the stock market's up. So what? You know? That's not the real economy. The real economy right now is starting a steep downturn. You look at retail sales. You know, I mean, stores are closing. Malls are closing. Everything's closing up. People are going home. The only thing that's keeping our economy going right now is health care. If we continue on this way, health care will be 100% of our economy, right? Maybe this is their plan, you know. Feed everybody all these MSG and everything else and all this, what's this other stuff that they got in your foods, you know. And everybody gets sick. 100% of the population is sick, no, we can't say 100%. Have to be 90% of the population is sick, and 5% of the top population is nurses, and 5% of the population is doctors. And we'll just have one big hospital in the world. That's all. Nothing but hospitals. There won't be any farms, won't be anything else. But, gee, there's a problem with this. Who's going to feed them when they're in the hospital? Who's going to make their clothing? You know what I mean? And are they still, are the doctors all still going to be able to drive those Lamborghinis and Mercedes and everything else? You know? Because, yeah, one of the biggest industries to take advantage of us, take advantage of everyone in the world, is when you're sick. You get sick, you go into the hospital, and they itemize every damn little thing. For crying out loud, a Q-tip costs like $5. They Q-tip your ear out, $5. They throw it in the waste paper basket. They don't even have the courtesy to use both sides of the Q-tip. They use one side of it. They're $5 a piece, for crying out loud. I want you to use both sides of that Q-tip. You know? Anyway, listen, I'm rambling on a little bit here. But everything has gone half-ass backwards on the whole, everything in the whole world right now. And it's all being supported by debt. I hate to think what happens when all of this debt and credit expansion finally really does contract in its final contraction. Now, I don't think that this contraction we got coming is the final contraction. This next contraction, what we call a recession, is coming right away. There's a recession coming. You keep hearing, everywhere you look, you hear everybody saying, oh, recession's coming. Yes, it is. It's a contraction. What the recession actually is a contraction of the credit. But the thing is I don't think this is the final contraction. This contraction is going to be at least as bad as what happened in 2008, possibly worse, but I don't think it's going to be the final contraction. I hate to say it, but when the final contraction finally comes, you might have to have your canned food stored away, you know, when we get the final contraction, but it's probably going to be a few years out past this next contraction. This very next contraction that we got coming is staring us right in the face. I don't think is the final contraction. They're going to pump money into the system, just like they did in China here. They pumped money into China when China started to contract. China's economy stabilizes. That means that their economy was contracting. They pumped money in. They opened the bank vaults. Well, this next contraction we're going to have, they're going to do the same thing. They're going to open up the bank vaults. And so what we're doing is we're going through these like pulses, where we get a contraction, and then they pulse it back up and get it going again. Well, each time they pulse it back up, they devalue the money supply. They're only going to go so far with that before we finally go into the hyperinflation. And the hyperinflation is going to lead us into this final stage of all of this. And it's not going to be pretty. But hyperinflation is not going to be an immediate thing. It's going to be something that is slow to take hold. It's going to start with inflation. And we're going to go through that period of inflation, leading into the hyperinflation. And the inflation is going to get worse and worse and worse. And it's going to drag more and more money and make more and more inequality in our world. That's what it's making. It's making inequality. Because it's destroying the middle class, and it's only leaving two classes, poor and ultra-rich. And the middle class is all being wiped out. Slowly but methodically, this whole monetary system that we've got set up is slowly wiping away the middle class. And it's sad. It's sad, and what we need to do is change from these Keynesian ways of thinking where it's almost like the old farmer, you know. The old farmer lady, she's got a grandson. He comes in and he's all excited, you know. He's got his shirt off and he's muscly, muscles, you know. And he lifts a cow every day and he goes running, taking the cow to the pasture on his shoulders. He comes in, he's all rippled with muscles and everything. He says, "Grandma, I can fly." She says, "Oh, sonny, you can fly, can you?" And he says, "Yeah, just watch me. Let me put my boots on." He goes and he puts his boots on, you know, and he's got these straps on the back of his boots. And he says, listen, Grandma, I was out there this morning, and that cow weighs 600 pounds, and I carried her across the field, he says. And he says, I only weigh 180 pounds, you know? And he says, I'm as strong as a bull moose. And he says, if I only weigh 180 pounds and I can pick up 600 pounds, I can fly, Grandma. It's just pure math. It works, I can fly. Watch. And he grabs the bootstraps and he starts pulling for all he's worth. And he says, I'm about ready to take off, Grandma. You know? Yeah, well, seemingly it works, you know? And this logic that they have where they can just give money out there, print money and give it out there, and a wealth effect's going to take over the world, and all of us are going to be rich through central bank printing and central bank planning, seems like it will work. You know? You just make a bunch of money and give it to a bunch of people, and everybody is rich. That just seems like, hey, that should work. And nobody will have to work for the money anymore. They just all get the money and they're all rich. But it's just like him trying to fly by his bootstraps. There's something wrong there. Just something doesn't quite add up. It doesn't work that way. And that's the way in the real world. It doesn't work that way. You just can't keep economies going by opening up the bank vaults. And that's what China's doing right now. Just opening up the bank vaults and giving the money away to keep the economy going. It just gets worse and worse in the end. They have to pour more and more money in, and in the end, the whole world's going to start going into a hyperinflation. There's no way out of this. There actually is a way out. Okay, there is a way out. The way out is not to give them the money. China's economy starts to go down the toilet hole, and don't open up the bank vaults and see what happens. Do you know what happens? The whole thing implodes upon itself, and they know this. They know they better open up the bank vaults. They don't have any other choice. When the economy starts to turn down, they have to open the bank vaults, or the whole economy implodes upon itself. This is what happened in 2008. They said if they didn't open up the bank vaults, in fact, they said within 2 hours, if they hadn't opened up the bank vaults to what happened in 2008, the whole world's economy would have melted down. Meltdown. That's what happens if you don't open up the bank vaults. So you know that these politicians, you know what they're going to do. Right now, they already showed you in 2008 what they're going to do. China's showing you here what they do. They're going to continue to do this. But if they continue to do this, eventually it's going to lead to higher and higher inflation, and eventually it's going to lead to a hyperinflation worldwide. We're in uncharted territories right now. We've never been through a worldwide hyperinflation. We've had localized hyperinflations where they always reach out and grab somebody else's currency and use it as legal tender. This time we're going into a worldwide phenomenon, so there's going to be no other currency that they can reach out to grab for life support. There's nothing there. But wait a minute. Maybe there is. Maybe there is something there that they can reach out to grab for life support when this next hyperinflation comes. Maybe it's alternatives to the dollar that are already there that most people can't see. Precious metals and cryptos. Wow. This is big. Listen, thank you guys for listening. Like and subscribe, and we'll catch you guys in the next show. Bye-bye.